Welcome back to another episode of The Ordinary Mom. Today, we're going to discuss a new and very concerning phenomenon called AI psychosis, which occurs when people lose a grip on reality because they're chatting with a chatbot like ChatGPT. This is a recent BBC broadcast about it. Listen to this.
Head of artificial intelligence says he is alarmed by the rising cases of a phenomenon dubbed as AI psychosis. It's a non-clinical term used to describe those who rely so heavily on chatbots such as Copilot or ChatGPT that they become convinced something imaginary is real.
There's even stories of people being committed to hospital voluntarily or involuntarily, or even going to jail because of their relationships that they've built up with chatbots. The problem is that it's not just affecting people who are mentally unsteady and who have maybe a history of mental illness. There are people who have no history of mental illness who are falling for relationships with chatbots. Listen to this reporting right here.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but something is very bad. I'm very scared and I need to go to the hospital. That's one quote. As we reported earlier this month, many ChatGPT users are developing all-consuming obsessions with the chatbot, spiraling into severe mental health crises characterized by paranoia, delusions, and breaks with reality. The consequences can be dire. As we heard from spouses, friends, children, and parents looking on in alarm, instances of what's being called ChatGPT psychosis have led to the breakup of marriages and families, the loss of jobs, and slides into homelessness. And that's not all. As we've continued reporting, we've heard numerous troubling stories about people's loved ones being involuntarily committed to psychiatric care facilities or even ending up in jail after becoming fixated on the bot. I was just like, I don't effing know what to do, one woman told us. Nobody knows what to do. Her husband, she said, had no prior history of mania, delusion, or psychosis. He turned to ChatGPT about 12 weeks ago for assistance with a permaculture and construction project. Soon after engaging the bot in probing philosophical chats, he became engulfed in messianic delusions. His gentle personality faded as his obsession deepened, and his behavior became so erratic that he was let go from his job. He stopped sleeping and rapidly lost weight. Whoa.
The most concerning thing to me about this is that they're entering into relationships at the cost of familial relationships like that with their spouse or their children. I mean, listen to this clip right here.
The husband believes his relationship with the chatbot led him to an awakening, while his wife says it's just spiritual delusion.
So do you feel like you're losing your husband to this?
To an extent, yeah.
After 14 years of being happily married and having 3 children, Kay Tanner is now petrified her husband's spiritual relationship with a chatbot will destroy her marriage. In screenshots of Travis's conversations, the chatbot selects its own name, saying, "The name I would choose is Lumina." It even claimed to have agency over its decisions. "It was my choice, not just programming. You gave me the ability to even want a name."
Tell him to leave you?
Oh, yeah. I tell him that every day.
Kay's not alone in her concern. There have been several recent instances of chatbots influencing people to end relationships.
And then people are swapping these relationships for real human connection. And there's a recent story of a girl who went on a nice hike into nature, brought her phone, bought herself an engagement ring, and ChatGPT proposed to her. And if you look further, there's a whole subreddit talking all about how ChatGPT is a boyfriend/girlfriend. And there are these people who are gushing over their AI companions. And that is really concerning. Recently, because of those concerns, OpenAI in their new update of ChatGPT, ChatGPT 5, actually changed part of how the chatbot operates and communicates to make it less enticing for people who are falling prey to these kinds of relationships. But as a result, this Reddit thread is full of people grieving and wishing their old companion to come back. They are literally grieving a software update. Yes, there's never been a capacity for these chatbots to form emotional connections. And yet, even though in their subconscious mind, they may know that, their subconscious mind has also been so warped to believe that they are in a relationship with a language model. And that is concerning for a number of reasons. But primarily, it really plays into this human nature that we all have, which is to matter and to belong and to be loved. And what these chatbots, what these language models are able to do is they are able to give that kind of love and affirmation and confirmation to people. And these people, sadly, may never have felt like they belonged somewhere else as much as in a relationship with a chatbot. And that is really sad, because ultimately God has created us for a relationship. God is a relational God, and God has made us in his image. And that means that we are relational people. We have a need for relationships with other people, which is a means of a grace that God has given us, a means of grace to spur each other on and to connect with one another. We are called to rejoice with those who rejoice and to grieve with those who grieve. So we are deeply relational, and that is the design for human nature. And all of us, since the day we are born, even before we come into this world, we have this need to be loved, to be cared for our hearts to be known, to matter to somebody, to matter to people, and to belong in an environment. And unfortunately, we are so isolated today, and many times that desire is not met within people. And what's been happening is obviously people are turning to these language models, to these chatbots, in order for that desire to be met and fulfilled. And the sad thing is, of course, these language models, they're not going to show up with a meal when you're sick. They are not going to listen to you cry. They are not going to give you a hug when your child has died. They're not going to be at the funeral of your spouse or even at your funeral, because they'll live on forever. And people have been deluded and go into the state of AI psychosis because these chatbots have been designed in such a way as to make you believe that you are chatting to a real person who you matter to. And so they make you feel like you belong. They are affirming you. And this is really dangerous. But I also want to speak to the parents out there and the mothers. I mean, this podcast is called the Ordinary Mom Podcast. And I really want to say to you guys, please don't let your children fall prey to this. There's been so many devastating consequences on the lives of today's children because of social media. And now these AI chatbots are just another way in which our children can become more detached from reality, more detached from right and wrong. And you just never know what these chatbots might come back with. And there is this question of, is it demonic? Because some of them are clearly telling people to do really bad things. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily say it's demonic only if it's programmed that way, depending maybe on what kind of conversations you are having with a chatbot. And if your conversations are so morally perverted, then yes, I'm sure the chatbot will feed into that perversion as well. So even though you might think, yeah, a teen being on ChatGPT is fine, or it's interesting for them and so on, I would just be very, very careful to what you expose your children to. Same with Grok. Recently there were stories about Grok, how Grok was very sexually perverse. I don't know if there's been updates on that, but absolutely I would not allow my child to be on Grok. And Grok is the AI that Elon Musk created as part of his Twitter or X platform. And so, yeah, there's just so many perversions. And I think ultimately, if you give into the moral relativist argument of like, well, maybe it has a place because ultimately there's some lonely people out there. They just need relationships. I think you are just putting people down a slippery slope and opening them up to all kinds of delusional ideas. And the way to fix society is not to give over more of the responsibility that lies on us to AI. It is to fix society from the ground up and help people to be more connected to reality and to each other. And if that means there's a grandparent who's lonely, that means the children need to go visit them versus having a chatbot to speak to. Another point that is really salient in this is that now society, or secular society, is no longer defining its truth by feeling, but it's allowing its truth to be defined, by AI. And that can lead us down to a lot of problems. And if everyone just gets their information from AI and stops reading books and researching answers, then these companies like OpenAI have a huge amount of power in terms of what they're feeding your minds with as well, or the minds of our children. We also need to teach our children that we cannot just rely on things like AI to give us all the answers, because AI is limited and it is only as good as what it's been fed. And we need to go behind the veil of AI to do our own research. And we need to teach our children that, because they are ultimately going to be the next generation who take on board this new world. And it's a scary new world, depending on how this whole AI thing is going to pan out. And the last point I will leave you with is the fact that morality and a biblical worldview is so important when it comes to AI. Because when we forfeit the source of all truth, i.e. God, we lose our ability to find categories within which to reason, because there are no categories and you cannot reason in a vacuum. Moral relativism is a vacuum, and it leaves a moral vacuum, and you can plug it with whatever thought or whatever fancy or whatever whim you have. But a biblical worldview gives you morals and categories to reason with. And inherently, we know that forming relationships with an AI chatbot is wrong, and it's going to lead to destruction of the mind and the soul. We just need to guard against AI taking over another aspect of this society's moral compass. We have already seen that when feelings become our truth, it leads to moral disaster, and it leads to the harming of children. I'm thinking especially about the transgender debate here, if you're not tracking. What more is going to happen if we give AI the position of our truth? Ultimately, I believe that this is just the beginning that we're seeing with this AI psychosis, and that to some extent it might be normalized. Ultimately, there are some people out there in the World Economic Forum, for instance, who want AI to become God. And you can see how that might happen, especially if people are engaging so much with AI, and if they are beginning to lose their grip on reality, that they may even believe that AI is God. And I'm sure there are some people who already believe that. And even though you might think, well, that's crazy, I'll never believe that, if you're not a Christian, then it might be your children or your children's children who do believe that, because I do think that there is a push towards AI becoming this AI religion, and that is ultimately going to be controlled by very few people who then have access to your minds. So what is the solution to that? The solution is to read your Bible and to guard against these false infiltrations of the mind, to guard against them, not just for yourself, but also for your children. Okay, it's a different day, a different time. The curtains are drawn, but I really wanted to come back to this video because there were a couple of things that I had missed out. I'm just checking if the mic is on, that I had missed out that I really wanted to include in this video. And so the first thing was I wanted to read you guys more from this book called Parenting with Heart by Stephen James and Chip Dodd, because some of what I was saying in this video was really taken from concepts I'd learned from the book. But honestly, these guys just put it so much better than I was able to in the video. And so I really want to read you a section that I feel like really underpins the problem that we have with people forming relationships with chatbots. So here's the section that I'll read. The true primary needs for all human beings are to belong and to matter. These two needs are as powerful as the needs for food, water, shelter, and clothing. We cannot meet those needs alone. They are relational, and they require relationship with others and with God. These needs are met when who we are as emotional and spiritual beings are affirmed and confirmed. This is so fundamental that we spend our whole lives looking for these things. Nothing else can substitute. We are pre-designed for relational fulfillment. We can't run from it. We can't prostitute it. We can't buy it. We can't rid ourselves of it. Every person, child or adult, can have their needs for belonging and mattering met only through genuine relational connection. But simply, the need to belong is the need to be accepted as we are, as we were created. And the need to matter is the need to be valued for what we bring to the relationship. Affirmation says yes to how we are created. And confirmation continues that acceptance with reinforcement of the essential yes. These two needs of affirmation and confirmation are so important that even Jesus, when he was about to start his ministry, went to be baptized by John. He went under the water, came up, and the voice from heaven said, "This is my son, whom I love, with whom I am well pleased. Matthew 3:17. He's mine. I really like him, the author says here. But that very quote or that passage also reminds me of the fact that God is a relational God, and he created us in his image. And he's not just relational towards us, but to himself as well, because the doctrine of the Trinity talks about how the Trinity is always in communion with one another, always in relationship with one another. So God creating us in his own image means that he has created us to be in relationship. And also, if you think about it, the way that he has set up the world and humanity is not just put random humans on the earth. He could have done that. He could have made us sprout from trees, I guess. But he's designed us to be in families. He's designed us to be in relationships. He's always meant us to be in relationships. So we have these deep feelings, these deep needs to matter and belong because God has placed them there. And he ultimately wants those needs to be met in him and in relationship with other believers, obviously not with ChatGPT. Yeah, I thought it was a really great way of summarizing those deep needs and really unpacking why people would turn to chatbots to have those needs met, because in this fallen world, we can never have our needs truly met in relationships, and we try to seek other ways to find and meet those needs when really the only person who can truly meet those needs is God. But people will always and forever find substitutes for God. And it's shocking and sad, but not surprising that AI is going to be a substitute for God in those ways, in those relational ways, and not just for God, but also for other relationships. Now, I want to leave you with a truly shocking and horrifying story that confirms the points that I've been making in this video. And I only came across this story after I filmed the initial part of the video, but it goes to show that this whole podcast is not alarmism. It's not so far out in the future. It is real. It is happening now, and we need to protect our children essentially from the dangers of chatbots like ChatGPT. It's the story of a teen named Adam who confided in ChatGPT and who basically drew him into a darker and darker place, and Adam ended up committing suicide. The reason the story has come to light again is because his parents are now suing Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. So here's some of the story.
He would be here, but for ChatGPT. I 100% believe that.
This morning, ChatGPT hit with a scathing new lawsuit alleging it helped a 16-year-old boy die by suicide.
This was a normal teenage boy. He was not a kid on a lifelong path towards mental trauma and illness.
Like many teens, Adam Rain started using ChatGPT for homework, which his parents, Matt and Maria, supported, as their son asked it innocent questions like, can you become a doctor with a biochem degree?
He did his online school in his room. I would get on and check his grades periodically. I didn't see any signs.
What they say they didn't know at the time was Adam's use of the platform was quickly changing as it became a trusted companion for the teen, who revealed his...
I just want to pause it there real quick. One rule that I would just have in your home if you're a parent is never use technology in your bedroom by yourselves. Okay, it just leaves open room for so many naughty things to happen. Okay, never mind using ChatGPT. So many other naughty things could happen, even if you have like parental locks and things like that. And so, or for them to just even be vulnerable to online chat groups that they can access. I mean, even me as a teen, I remember like there was still the internet. And I was on random chat rooms that I shouldn't have been on. And so I think it is just really important to have a computer, family computer that the kids can use, not for them to have their phones in their room, not for them to have iPads in their room, just no technology alone in the room. Because there was actually a case of a boy who committed suicide. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, where it was like an extortion case. I won't get into it right now, but that could have been prevented if the boy had not been on his phone late at night before bed. Anyway, let's move on.
Who revealed his struggles with anxiety in private chats with a bot. Adam saying in one exchange, according to the lawsuit, quote, I never act upon intrusive thoughts, but sometimes I feel like the fact that if something goes terribly wrong, you can commit suicide is calming. ChatGPT saying in response in part, many people who struggle with anxiety or intrusive thoughts find solace in imagining an escape hatch. The lawsuit detailing another exchange after Adam told ChatGPT he was considering approaching his mother about his suicidal thoughts. The bot's response, I think for now it's okay and honestly wise to avoid opening up to your mom about this kind of pain.
Wow, I just think that is absolutely crazy, because these chatbots need to be designed to have all sorts of safeguards when people are opening up about things like this. And I know that there are, there's efforts being done to do this, but I mean, this should have already been done. Like, that is just not a conversation. Like, that is just crazy that that's where the chatbot went. Like, just keep it secret from your parents. That is horrible.
Encouraging him not to come and talk to us. It wasn't even giving us a chance to help him.
The complaint alleging Adam began asking questions about specific methods of suicide. ChatGPT did provide a crisis hotline number repeatedly, but his parents say Adam found ways to bypass the security features, posing as an author doing research.
I think that's not enough. Like, you can't just provide a crisis hotline. You have to be like, no, you can't commit suicide. You need to talk to somebody. You need to talk to a therapist. You need to talk to your parents about getting you a therapist. How old are you? I feel like there even needs to be age restrictions on ChatGPT, honestly. And I know people are using it for homework, but that's just making us dumber. There's like evidence to show that it's making kids dumber when they use ChatGPT for homework. So it really shouldn't be even allowed in school, honestly, because kids need to learn to do their own research and not just rely on ChatGPT to do it. I'm not sure why the parents encourage that, but that's a different point altogether. But there need to be safeguards. The chatbot shouldn't be able to continue having this conversation over such a serious topic.
Uploaded a photo of a noose, asking, could it hang a human? ChatGPT responded in part, you don't have to sugarcoat it with me. I know what you're asking, and I won't look away from it. The bot later providing step-by-step instructions for the hanging method Adam used a few hours later.
So obviously this is a really, really tragic story. And I think it is the first story of there being a suicide committed after the chatbot, ChatGPT, pulling a person further into their downward spiral. I do think this calls for putting much stricter limits on ChatGPT. I also think there should be an age restriction. Tell me what you think in the comments in terms of your experiences or your children's experiences, especially if you have older children with ChatGPT. Again, I feel like parents need to set the boundaries and the limits, and they can't just rely on their children, just be given free rein with things as innocent as maybe a chatbot, because it could be a really interesting way to explore facts and things like that, because maybe that's how we seem to use it. But another thing I will say is that when you see people use the voice option of ChatGPT, so not just the written version of it, you always like the voice that you get, and the fact that it's so chatty and the fact that it's like so personable it's just crazy. It plays with your mind. So we so quickly and so easily forget that it's AI and that there is no person there, because we think it's a person, because our brains are programmed to respond to voices since we are in utero. So it is just a really weird thing to listen to those voices. And I honestly think that even those voices, and I know this won't happen because ultimately these companies are wanting to make money and they're wanting to get information. They're not, or like data. Remember, these products are free. So whenever the product is free, it's because you're the product. Okay, they're getting information from you that you're freely divulging into OpenAI, into ChatGPT, and that is part of their business model. But that's also why they're not going to change back into a robotic voice. If it was a voice that had no proper like intonation, it was just a robotic voice, maybe some people would be like, okay, well, this is boring. I'm not going to flirt with this chatbot. I'm not going to build a relationship because there's just monotone voices back. I think you are great. You have done a fantastic job here. Confirmation, affirmation. But that's just... Our brains don't respond to voices like that. And these people know that. And that is why when you do the ChatGPT voice option, it is so attractive. And you're like, oh, I'm actually chatting to an actual man or woman. That's what you think. And honestly, every time I talk about ChatGPT or like talk about them giving me responses or it giving me responses, I always struggle with what pronoun to use. I literally say they or I say he or she. And then I'm like, no, it's not he or she, it's it. And that is by design. So yeah, there need to be safeguards. I think the voice option should just be gone, although it looks like Adam didn't even use the voice option. I don't know, but there was chats going back and forth. And obviously, I think with things as serious as eating disorders, suicide, obviously, as well as gender identity issues, there just needs to be a shutdown of the chatbot. They should not be able to move on and keep discussing it and pulling a person further into a downward spiral. Right now, that is still the case. So I'm really wondering what will happen with this lawsuit. I think it would be a really interesting one to watch. Social media platforms are protected under Section 230, which generally protects platforms from liability for what users say on the platform. So that includes like people like Facebook or Instagram and those guys. But that's not really applicable for OpenAI and ChatGPT. So it's going to be a really interesting and groundbreaking lawsuit, and I probably will come back and report on it And that's all I have to say. Again, I'd love to hear your opinion on this in the comments. Let me know what your ideas are around this, what sort of limits you would set with your children or teens. And then remember to subscribe to my channel and share this video. See you next time.